All right, y'all. Welcome back to the Cryptid Counterculture, the show where we chase the things that go bump in the night and then turn right around and ask why that bump feels just real enough to mess with your head. I'm your host, Sloan Barton, and tonight's episode is called Just Enough to Be Real. Are we meant to be confused? Now, if you've ever had an encounter or even just sat up late reading through some of these reports, you already know what I'm talking about. Because when people see something out there, it don't look fake, but it don't look fully right either. It sits right there in that middle ground. You see something that shouldn't exist, but it ain't glowing. It ain't flying around shooting lasers. It's almost explainable. Almost. It leaves footprints. You hear it move. Sometimes you smell it. Wet dog, something rotten, something just off. And then there's the eyes. Not just looking at you, but watching you, thinking. And then just like that, it's gone. And you're left sitting there at 2 a.m, staring out into the darkness, asking yourself, was that real? Or was I supposed to think it was? And that right there, that's the pattern I want to talk about tonight. Because the more I look at this stuff, the more it feels like that confusion ain't accidental. It feels intentional. Like these encounters are just believable enough to hook you, but just unclear enough to make you doubt everything you just experienced. Your eyes, your mind, and sometimes even your faith. Now, tonight, we're going to walk through this from every angle I can think of. The natural explanations, the psychological, the technological, the interdimensional stuff people talk about. And yeah, we're going to talk about the spiritual side too. Because I'm a follower of Jesus Christ. And I don't check that at the door when things get weird. If anything, that's where I go first. Scripture is the lens I use to make sense of all of this. So, however you're listening right now, coffee, sweet tea, whatever you got, settle in and let's walk through this together. All right, first thing we got to do is name what we're looking at. And I call it just enough to be real syndrome. Because that's what it is. It's always just enough. Take Bigfoot, for example. You get a blurry trail cam photo, a footprint that's way bigger than it ought to be. Maybe a sound that don't match anything you've ever heard. But never a clear video, never a body, never anything that just shuts the conversation down. It's always right there in that gray area. And look at Mothman up in Point Pleasant. Red eyes, humanoid shape, wings that don't quite work like anything we understand. People see it, they feel something's wrong, and then the bridge collapses. Now, is that a warning? Is it a coincidence? People still argue about it because, again, it's just enough to be real, but never enough to be settled. Then you've got Skinwalker Ranch. Now, that place is on a whole different level. Cattle mutilations that don't make sense, orbs, creatures, things changing shape, poltergeist type activity. And the people reporting it ain't just random folks either. You got scientists, military backgrounds, people trained to observe things. And still, every piece of evidence ends up falling apart under pressure or getting explained away. So you step back and look at all of this, and it starts to feel like whatever's behind it is playing a game. Like it's saying, believe me, but not too much. And the question is why? So let's start with the simple stuff, because we got to be honest if we're going to talk about this. First off, hoaxes. People mess around. They fake things. They put on suits. They make prints. They use drones. That stuff happens. There's no doubt about it. But here's the problem. You can't fake this kind of pattern at scale, across decades, across different places, across people who don't know each other. And you definitely can't fake the feeling people describe, that heaviness, that fear, that silence in the woods. That's harder to explain away. Second is misidentification. Your brain can play tricks on you. Darkness messes with you. Fear messes with you. You can mistake something normal for something strange. I've done it myself. Thought I saw something, turned the light on. It wasn't what I thought it was. But again, that don't explain the pattern. Why do multiple people sometimes see the same thing at the same time? Why do sober, level-headed people have these experiences in broad daylight? That ain't just your brain glitching. Third, is government stuff. Now this one gets interesting. Black projects, advanced tech, drones, sound weapons, genetic experiments. And look, I'm not going to sit here and say that stuff's impossible. We've seen enough to know there's things going on behind the scenes we don't know about. But here's the question that keeps sticking with me. If it is the government, why the confusion? Why not make it fully convincing or fully deniable? Why leave people right there in the middle, half convinced and unsettled? Now we start getting into the deeper water. Some folks say these things ain't animals at all. They say there's something else, something crossing over, interdimensional, ultra terrestrial, something that can move in and out, something that can show itself and then pull back, like it's watching us while we're trying to figure it out. And I'll be honest, that's interesting to me. But it still leaves me with the same question. Why the confusion? Why not just reveal itself? Why stay in that gray area? Now, this is where I'm going to bring it back to where I stand on this. And I'm going to say it plain, because I don't separate my faith from this conversation. Scripture says this: God is not the author of confusion. So when I see a pattern of confusion, distraction, people being pulled in 10 different directions, I've got to ask, where's that coming from? Now, I'm not saying every encounter is something spiritual. I'm not saying every Bigfoot sighting is something demonic. That ain't what I'm saying at all. There's real world stuff mixed in here. But I am saying this. There's something about this pattern that lines up real close with deception. Because deception don't usually show up obvious. It don't walk in and announce itself. It shows up just believable enough to get your attention, just clear enough to keep you off balance. And that's what we're seeing. People walk away from these encounters, not just confused about what they saw, but questioning everything, their senses, their understanding, and sometimes even their faith. And here's something else I've noticed. These encounters, they don't usually bring people closer to truth. They pull them sideways, into obsession, into fear, into chasing answers that never settle. And that right there is what really makes me stop and think. Because if something keeps you spinning, keeps you searching, keeps you unsettled, then you got to ask, whose kingdom does that serve? You know, I prayed on this a lot, and the thing I keep coming back to is this. The confusion keeps you looking sideways instead of upward. Because if you look upward, you remember who's actually in control. You remember that there are boundaries. You remember that Christ has authority over all of it. So here's where I land on this. And you don't have to agree with me, but this is where I stand. Yeah, something is happening out there. I believe it. I believe people are seeing real things. But I don't believe we're meant to stay confused. I think we're meant to take that confusion and bring it to God. Not sit in it, not chase it endlessly, but bring it to Him and say, all right, what is this? Show me what's true and protect me from what ain't. Because I'm not here just to chase shadows. I'm here to understand what's behind them. And I'm not here just to talk about cryptids. I'm here to help people stay grounded while they're looking into this stuff. So if you've had an experience, something that left you confused, something that just didn't sit right, I want to hear about it. You can hit me up in the Facebook group Discovering Dog Man and the Unexplained. Or you can email me at the cryptidcounterculture@gmail.com. We'll talk about it. We'll pray through it if we need to. Because here's the truth. That confusion, it won't last forever. One day everything's going to be made clear. And until then, we walk by faith, not by blurry trail cam photos. All right, y'all. I appreciate you spending this time with me. If this one stuck with you, share it with somebody. And next time, we're going to get into Skinwalker Ranch and what the Bible might actually have to say about places like that. Until then, keep your eyes on Jesus, your boots on the trail, and your head on straight. This is Sloan Barton, signing off from the Cryptid Counterculture. Go in peace, stay grounded, and remember, the truth ain't just enough. The truth is more than enough.